Proud Pinoy, the Philippines is celebrating another historic run by Pinay tennis star Alex Eala. The now world number 28 has stormed into the fourth round of Wimbledon 2026.
Hello mga kababayan, maraming salamat ulit sa suporta, sa pagpupuyat, sa pagdadasal. Magkita tayo sa when's my next one? Sorry, sa Monday, sa Lunes. At yan.
Nobody inside that stadium walked in expecting to witness history, and that's exactly why what happened next hit as hard as it did. What you're about to hear isn't just the story of a tennis match. It's the story of a young woman who was expected to lose, a champion who was expected to win, and one unforgettable afternoon on the most famous lawn in the world where none of those expectations mattered anymore. Somewhere in the crowd, a camera captured a face that didn't look nervous at all, and that should have been the first warning for everyone watching from the other side of the net. Because when calm appears in the wrong place at the wrong time, it's often the first sign that something extraordinary is about to happen. Let's rewind for a moment, because to understand what Alex walked out of, you first have to understand what she was walking into. Center court doesn't just host tennis matches, it swallows people. Legends have stepped onto that court looking invincible and walked away looking like strangers to themselves, undone by a silence so complete it feels as though the entire stadium is holding its breath, waiting to see who cracks first. Standing across the net was the reigning champion, a player with 6 Grand Slam titles who had already redefined what dominance looks like in women's tennis. She didn't need to intimidate anyone because her resume did that for her every time she stepped onto the court. So when the draw matched her against 21-year-old Alex Eala from the Philippines, ranked 32 places below her, most people didn't see a contest. They saw a routine formality, another box to check before the real tournament began. But here's the thing, nobody ever tells you an upset is coming before it happens. They never look like upsets before the first ball is struck. They look like mismatches. They look like mercy. And then the opening point begins, and every assumption inside the stadium quietly starts to disappear. But before we get to that first point, there's something you need to know, something the commentators kept coming back to all week because it completely changes how you should watch this match. This wasn't the first time these two had shared a court. 16 months earlier, on the hard courts of Miami, a much less famous version of Alex Eala faced the very same opponent and defeated her in straight sets. At the time, the result was so unexpected that it barely reached beyond tennis circles, dismissed as a feel-good story about a promising young player enjoying the best week of her career. A few months later, the champion responded on the clay courts of Madrid, battling through a 3-set victory that seemed to restore the expected order, at least on paper. That left their head-to-head record tied at 1 win apiece heading into Wimbledon. Each match was explained away as a product of a different surface, a different moment, and a different set of circumstances. No one was willing to see it as a pattern, not yet. Alex stepped onto the grass first, showing no hesitation in her stride and no nervous glances into the crowd searching for reassurance. Technically, she had been here before, having played on this very court against another defending champion in a debut that could have unfolded very differently. That experience mattered far more than most people realized because first appearances on center court either break you or build something that stays with you forever. For Alex, it had built something lasting. You could see it during the warm-up. The coaches in the stands, the ones who truly understand what they are watching, weren't focused on her forehand or her footwork. They were watching her eyes, and her eyes weren't asking for permission to belong. Across the net, the champion moved through her familiar pre-match routine with the quiet confidence of someone who had ended the dreams of countless underdogs before. For players like her, routine is more than habit, it's armor, and it's supposed to be impossible to crack. As the opening games unfolded, both players held serve with confidence, trading tight, tense games without giving much away. No one was surprised. Close starts happen all the time, and champions are expected to absorb that early pressure before eventually flipping a switch that ordinary players simply don't possess. At some point, they usually raise their level, take control, and quietly close the door on any hope of an upset. The champion appeared to do exactly that in the third game, earning the first break of the match with a forehand passing shot that clipped the line. It was the kind of winner that made the crowd settle into their seats, convinced they were about to watch the familiar script unfold. But this time, the script refused to cooperate. Alex responded immediately, breaking straight back with a high, looping moonball return that pulled the champion out of position before finishing the rally with a perfectly angled passing shot off a drive volley that seemed to find a lane where none should have existed. Every time the champion applied pressure, Alex answered with even greater intensity. She stepped inside the baseline on returns, taking time away from one of the most dangerous players in the sport, a bold decision few players her age would even consider. She wasn't just winning points, she was stealing time, rhythm, and the one thing champions depend on most, the feeling of being in control, even when the scoreboard says otherwise. Alex broke once again to move ahead and found herself serving for the opening set at 5-3, just 1 point away from taking it cleanly. But then the champion reminded everyone why she owned 6 Grand Slam titles. 3 consecutive forehand winners, struck with ruthless precision, instantly restored the sense that normal order had returned. Moments later, the score was level at 5 games all, the tension completely reset. Alex even missed a chance to move ahead again at 6-5, sending a return just long on breakpoint, leaving nothing to separate the two players except a tiebreak. And if you know anything about tiebreaks against a 6-time Grand Slam champion, you know that's usually where the underdog story ends. Instead, something remarkable happened. Alex raced to a 5-2 lead through relentless returning, attacking the champion's second serve early and driving the ball back with the depth and pace that repeatedly forced mistakes. Every time the champion threatened to regain control, Alex found an answer. A return struck from an impossible angle, a passing shot threaded through the smallest of openings. Then, just when it seemed the momentum had completely shifted, the champion produced an incredible 4-point surge to reach set point at 6-5, bringing the entire stadium to the edge of its seat. The champion's late surge was the kind that had ended hundreds of matches before this one. It was the kind of momentum swing that makes broadcasters begin writing the ending in their heads before the final point is even played. But Alex refused to let the story end there. She saved one set point, then another. The tiebreak kept swinging back and forth, point after exhausting point, until it no longer felt like a tennis match. It felt like a standoff where neither player was willing to blink first. Finally, it ended 11-9. Read that score again because it tells you everything about how razor-thin the margin really was and how little separated triumph from heartbreak. Alex converted her fourth set point by forcing one final error from the champion's forehand, sealing one of the biggest sets of her career. What happened next should have been the most unsettling moment of all for the champion. Alex barely celebrated. There was no dramatic roar, no fists raised toward the sky, no emotional release for the crowd. She simply sat down, took a drink of water, and looked calmly toward her team, as if she had only completed the first part of the job and was already focused on the next 20 minutes. That quiet confidence spoke louder than any celebration ever could because it revealed something important. She wasn't satisfied. She wasn't overwhelmed by the moment. She wasn't finished. Not even close, and when you look beyond the emotion of that opening set, the numbers make the performance even more impressive. The first set alone lasted a grueling 84 minutes, but Alex wasn't surviving through luck or desperation. She was executing a carefully designed game plan with remarkable precision. She attacked the champion's second serve early, consistently driving deep returns that prevented her opponent from taking control of rallies. By the end of the set, the champion had already committed 27 unforced errors. That isn't the product of fortune. It's the result of a strategy being executed exactly as it was intended, one that had likely been built and refined on the practice court long before either player stepped onto center court. This is usually where the story changes. Whenever an underdog takes the lead against a legend, the legend adjusts. That's what makes champions legendary. Years of experience teach them how to solve problems under pressure faster than almost anyone else. After that physically and emotionally draining opening set, both players stepped off the court for an extended break before the second set began, each knowing the next chapter of the match could define everything that followed. Everyone watching expected the champion to return from the break reorganized, sharper, and ready to erase the memory of that opening set. And to her credit, she tried. She changed the tempo on her forehand, moved forward earlier than usual, and reached for every adjustment that had rescued her from difficult situations countless times throughout her career. But Alex came back even stronger. She opened the second set with a break to love, then earned another break through nothing more than relentless, pinpoint returning. Before the champion could settle into any rhythm, Alex had raced to a commanding 4-0 lead. Every tactical change the champion made seemed to be one Alex had already anticipated. Rather than retreat under the added pace, she absorbed it, redirected it, and turned defense into offense in a single shot over and over again, forcing frustration to creep into an opponent who rarely showed any signs of it. The signs weren't dramatic, but they were there. A slower walk to the towel. A longer pause before serving. Tiny cracks that never appear on a stat sheet yet mean everything to anyone who has competed under real pressure. The champion managed to fight back with one break of serve, cutting the deficit to 4-2, and for a brief moment the stadium sensed the comeback everyone had expected from the very beginning. But the momentum never truly shifted. Alex answered immediately, drawing a pair of costly double faults from the champion before breaking again and calmly holding serve to restore complete control of the match. The numbers confirmed that none of this was happening by chance. Over the course of the match, Alex inverted 5 of her 7 breakpoint opportunities while saving 8 of the 11 breakpoints she faced. That's the kind of efficiency that wins matches long before highlight reel winners ever do. Meanwhile, every attempt by the champion to disrupt the rallies by moving forward to the net only made matters worse. She won fewer than half of those net approaches, meaning the very tactical adjustment designed to unsettle Alex was quietly handing crucial points back to her instead, and this is the moment that separates unforgettable victories from painful collapses. Most 21-year-olds, holding a comfortable lead against a legendary champion on center court, would become cautious. They would protect the lead instead of chasing it. Alex did the exact opposite. She kept attacking. She kept stepping inside the baseline. She kept trusting the game that had brought her there, refusing to let fear dictate a single point. Playing it safe against a champion like this is usually an invitation for disaster because the greatest players can sense hesitation long before they actually see it. Alex refused to give her that opening. Every service game became another quiet declaration. I am not here by accident, and I am not leaving early to halfway across the world. Something else was unfolding that had nothing to do with tactics and everything to do with why this match meant so much. In homes across the Philippines, fans stayed awake deep into the night, refreshing live scores and holding their breath through a time difference most casual viewers would never even think about. To them, this wasn't simply another tennis match. It was history trying to happen in real time, live, unscripted, and with absolutely no promise of a happy ending. Back on center court, none of that emotion reached Alex. She remained completely locked into the smallest unit of the match. This point, this return, this serve. She understood a truth that separates good players from unforgettable ones. Champions remain dangerous until the very last ball is struck, not until you're ahead on the scoreboard, not until the crowd is behind you, but until the final point is over. The defending champion made one last desperate push, dragging Alex into a marathon service game late in the second set. It stretched through 6 deuces and 4 breakpoints, each one a test of whether everything the crowd had witnessed over the past hour was real or simply a dream about to disappear. Alex answered every challenge. She saved all 4 breakpoints, refusing to give the champion even the smallest opening to rediscover the magic that had rescued her countless times before. Point after point, Alex stayed relentless, denying the defending champion even a sliver of momentum. Then, at last, the moment every athlete imagines thousands of times before it ever becomes reality finally arrived. Match point. The air inside the stadium seemed to disappear. The silence was so complete you could almost hear your own heartbeat. The champion refused to surrender quietly, firing a brilliant backhand winner on the first match point, reminding everyone in the stadium exactly who she was and buying herself one final breath, one last chance to extend the fight. But it wasn't enough to change what was coming next. Alex's routine never changed. The same deep breath. The same bounce of the ball. The same calm stillness that had carried her through every moment of pressure that afternoon. Then, on her third match point, it finally happened. She struck a clean, fearless forehand winner, and the champion's final reply drifted just wide of the line. In that instant, center court didn't simply applaud, it rose to its feet. The upset was complete. But the most unforgettable moment was still to come. For more than 2 hours, Alex had held her emotions in check with remarkable composure. Now, at last, that composure gave way. She collapsed to her knees in tears, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she had accomplished. It was no longer just about winning a tennis match. It was about realizing that history had just been made. The calm that had carried her through one of the biggest matches of her life finally broke, replaced by the raw emotion of a dream becoming reality. The final statistics revealed just how extraordinary the performance had been. Alex finished with 24 winners and only 21 unforced errors, while the champion produced 32 winners but was undone by an astonishing 44 unforced errors, more than twice as many mistakes as Alex. Numbers like those don't appear by chance on the biggest stage in tennis. They are the result of a game plan executed with precision under relentless pressure, point after point, for more than 2 hours. For Alex, this victory meant far more than defeating a champion. It represented a breakthrough for an entire nation that had never before seen one of its own reach this stage of a Grand Slam. When she finally spoke after the match, still catching her breath and fighting back tears, she struggled to put the moment into words. She admitted that, compared with the trophy collections of her opponent or the legendary Williams sisters, this achievement might seem small to some. But for someone who grew up in the Philippines, it meant something far greater than any words could fully express. For a 6-time Grand Slam champion,